6 lines before the end of the narrow lines. The page is narrow lines, and then it gets wider. So we're about 6 lines before the lines get wider. We're on page 31a. It says v'chein. So we've just spoken about how a person should enter into davening. We spoke about the fact that there seems to be a possible contradiction, because the Mishnah said you're supposed to enter the davening in a state of kaved rosh, heaviness of the head, which we had a number of ways of translating, either humility or kavana, humility, awe, fear, trepidation, and that was the Mishnah. And then the Brisa mentioned about entering into davening in a state of simcha, joy, simcha shel mitzvah, joy of a mitzvah, which we explained referred to words of consolation from verses. And Rashi gave a few examples. We follow this, of course, with our Ashrei, and we say verses of redemption from Egypt before we do the Shemona Esrei. So we have definitely in the wording, we definitely do the wording. We follow this brisa with reciting Ashrei by Mincha before Shemona Esrei. We say the Shemona Esrei in the midst of Simcha Shel Mitzvah, this joy of mitzvah, which is like words of consolation from Torah, and redemption from Egypt, and how Hashem protects us and watches over us, and so on. He won't forsake us. Then, and we also mentioned how the Bach tries to reconcile it, that it's not a contradiction, that really a person should have kaved rosh, more of a reverence and awe and fear. But because many people don't do that, they're not into the awe and fear, they're jolly people, they, at least when they enter davening, they should enter in a state of joy from a mitzvah, not just joy from their mundane and unholy matters of joy. They should enter the davening in the midst of joy of a mitzvah, words that they are excited when they read, when they see Torah and are excited over it and happy. That is how they should daven in the midst. At least their joy should come from Torah, from words of verses that are happy. Now, I did also mention that's one explanation. Other explanations, other ways of learning this is that you could have both feelings and at the same time. Now, so it's not a contradiction. Or another way to learn it is it actually is an argument. Different rabbis follow different things. There's 2 different opinions. That's a third way of learning. Now, the interesting thing is that the Rambam brings down the statement of the Brisa in chapter 4 of his the Rambam in Maimonides, he brings down Ein oimdim lehispalo, don't get up to daven, not in the midst of joy and not in the midst of levity, and not in the midst of laughter, not in the midst of irreverent behavior, and not in the midst of conversation or argument or anger, but rather in the midst of words of Torah. However, shouldn't be in the midst of a judgment or a difficult halachic issue, even though these are words of Torah, lest one's minds be distracted. Rather, one should pray in the midst of words of Torah that do not require deep concentration, laws that have already been ruled upon. So the Rambam definitely brings down the second brisa, this statement about Torah, words of Torah, or simcha shel mitzvah, which the words we have in our Gemara is the joy of a mitzvah, or halacha rulings. But the Rambam bring down the kaved rosh, the obligation to have awe when a person says Shemona Esrei, or humility. So in a few paragraphs before, he writes, what is the kavana that a person should have? So he says, if your prayer doesn't have kavana, it's not a prayer. You don't have concentration. And if you daven without concentration, you have to daven again. And if you find that you're not able to concentrate, you shouldn't daven. And he says, what is the concentration? Remove from your mind all thoughts and imagine yourself as if you're standing before the Shekhinah, before the divine presence. And therefore, you should wait a moment before davening to have kavanah, to concentrate your heart. And afterwards, you could daven pleasantly, in a pleasant and supplicatory fashion. So it would seem that this is how the Rambam is understanding Koved Rosh. In other words, the Rambam is bringing both. There is one commentary that wants to say that the Rambam Haskins, he gives the verdict only like the second brisa, like the final view of our Gemara, but the Rambam doesn't bring down Koved Rosh. He doesn't bring down. So maybe Tosfos holds that we follow the Koved Rosh, the Mishnah. But the Rambam seems to pass in like the brisa. There's one opinion that says that that's how he understands the Rambam. But I think if you look in the Rambam, you pretty much have an easy way to explain that the Rambam is really saying both opinions, and he's expecting us to do both, because the Rambam says about getting rid of any of your external thoughts and imagine you're standing before the Shekhinah. So that would seem to be this Koved Rosh, this type of feeling of awe before Hashem. You're standing before Hashem. So it would seem to me like the Rambam maybe is following both. There is an interesting question on the Rambam. The Rambam says if you don't have kavana, you don't concentrate, it's not considered a davening at all. And you should daven again. The problem is that the Rambam in chapter 10, this is the Rambam in chapter 4. The Rambam in chapter 10 says that as long as you have concentration in the first blessing, it's good enough. So how does the Rambam in chapter 4 say if you didn't have intention, you didn't have concentration, you have to daven again, and it's not a prayer? And in chapter 10 he says, as long as you have the first blessing, it's good enough. So the simple way of answering the Rambam is talking in general in chapter 4. And in chapter 10, the Rambam is saying the specifics. But that's a very called a balabatish way to answer the Rambam. That's like a very simple answer that's not taking into consideration the way the Rambam wrote his sefer, that he was so exact in everything that he wrote. And therefore, there is a commentary, Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, he explains this Rambam to mean that there's two types of concentrations that a person's supposed to have when they daven. One is to feel you're standing before Hashem. That concentration is extremely important. And if you don't have that, when you're saying Shemona Esrei, you have to imagine that you're standing before Hashem. You're speaking to the King. And that is necessary and for the entire daven. And when he's talking about in chapter 10, the first blessing, that's to understand the words, Perish Hamilos. And that's how he explains that this is important to have, to concentrate on Hashem, that you're speaking to Hashem, because otherwise, he says, it's almost like you're acting with no brain. When you do things without a brain, it's not called an action. So he says, of course, davening is the same thing. You need to have it. Otherwise, it's called misasek. You're just like moving your hands around. You don't even know what you're doing. That's not called an action. When you have to concentrate on Hashem when you're davening. Now, this is a very powerful statement, because what it means is that if we don't think about Hashem, we say Shemona Esrei, what ends up is our Shemona Esrei is really invalid. It really gives us a shape that, you really have to think about Hashem, mamish, when you're, standing Shemana Esrei, you have to concentrate the entire time. Yes, Robert.
I've always, I've grappled with the term kavana, whether it's concentration or transcendence, in being in Hashem's presence. So to me, that's sort of, it's ambiguous. We can concentrate, but the feeling of being with Hashem is transcendence, which is a different form of consciousness. Am I wrong? I'm trying to define that.
Well, you could translate, when you're saying the word concentrate and then you're saying transcendence, are you translating concentrate is like translating the word, understanding the words that you're saying? What do you mean when you say the word concentrate?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of, when you concentrate, your mind is on something specific. But with transcendence is you go beyond the concentration and you're at the place of being with Hashem. Your attachment to Hashem is more than thinking about it by concentration. It's a manifestation. It's a being with Hashem in your spiritual reaching out to Hashem.
So the transcendence word that you're using seems to be how Reb Chaim is learning this Rambam.
Okay.
That's the most important part of the kavana. The word kavana is that you're standing before the king.
Right. Now, going beyond concentration. Right.
Yeah, it's beyond the understanding of the words. It's more of you're standing in the presence of Hashem.
Right, being.
I think there are many levels of that transcendence. I'm sorry for cutting you off. I think there are many levels of that transcendence. And I don't know if you need to have the highest level to fulfill this obligation, but you're standing before Hashem, you're feeling that you're standing before Hashem, you fulfilled the obligation. Now, can you go deeper into that and really imagine, there must be some deeper meditation on top of that as well. You know what I mean? If you delve into that. But on a simple level, as long as you feel you're standing before Hashem, you've fulfilled this obligation that the entire prayer should have. So that's a very powerful statement. And that's how he answers the Rambam. That, of course, it's good to understand all the words of the prayers, but at least, you should have the meaning, and the meaning of the prayer for the first blessing is crucial, at least to fulfill the mitzvah. Yes, Susan.
I was going to say, when there's a lot of conflict, when I'm having a lot of outside issues trying to bother me, I always ask Hashem, keep all of that away, get that. And when I actually imagine that, he takes it away from me.
Right. So what you're doing is you're doing the prayer that God should let you pray better. You're doing the pre-prayer.
Yes.
It's like a preparatory prayer. Hashem, please allow me to pray good. And that we spoke about, actually. So very nice, Susan. Yes, Ben.
There is one phone number that is not muted, and there's a lot of noise coming from it.
Okay, let me make
a green phone number.
Now, see, my system doesn't see the green, but I can imagine what you're hearing. So let me mute everyone.
A 34 something number in it.
Oh, okay, fine. All right. Okay, I fixed it. Okay, so if anyone wants to ask anything or say anything, you can unmute yourself. Also, if you're on the phone, you can press *6. *6 will allow us to hear you. Okay, so that's the Rambam and the contradiction in the Rambam, and that's how the commentaries answer it. We are now, so back to where I wanted to start in the Gemara, the word v'chein. And we're about 6 lines or 7 lines before the end of the narrow lines on page 31a. Person should not leave his friend, not from the conversation, and not from some type of a laughter, not in the midst of levity, not in the midst of words that are unimportant. Rather, you should, when you say goodbye to your friend, you should say goodbye in the midst of a word of halacha. And on the side, there's a version here of Simcha Shel Mitzvah, the Gra saying that the joy of a mitzvah, which would make this continuation of the previous Gemara exact. That you should continue. That just like you daven in the midst of Simcha Shel Mitzvah, in the midst of a joy of a mitzvah, you should separate from your friend in the midst of Simcha Shel Mitzvah. But the other way of reading it is just a word of halacha, which means that you should say a word of Torah before you say goodbye. Shekein matzino b'navim harishayim. That so we find in the earlier prophets, among the prophets of earlier generations, shasimu divrayim divrei shvach b'tanchumin, that they ended their words with words of praise and consolation. And so that's how they separated from their friends, and that's how they ended their books, the books of the prophets, and that's how a person should end their meeting with their friend. That when they say goodbye, you should end with a word of halacha or a word of Torah, a word of inspiration. And then the Gemara surprisingly brings a story here. No, not 1 second. I'll tell you the surprising story soon. Not yet. This follows. V'chein Tana Marei Berei de Rav Huna, and so learned Marei, the son, Barbarei, the grandson of Rav Huna, Berei de Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, the son of Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. A lot of names over there. Marei, or the son, the grandson of Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yirmiyah, the son of Abba. Al yipater adam echaveiroi, a person should not leave his friend. Ela miteich dvar halacha, only in the midst of a word of halacha, Torah, and yishemiteich kach zoichrehu, because through doing that you will zoichrehu, he will remember you. Ki had Rav Kahana, similar to the story of Rav Kahana, al bi'el Rav Shimi Barashi, that he escorted Rav Shimi Barashi mipum nahara at Beit Sinisa, from the edge of the river until the place of the Sinisa. Beit Sinisa. Sinisa means palm trees. So he escorted him this distance. Beit Sinisa de Bavel, of Bavel. When he arrived there, Amar Le, he said to him, Amar Le Mar, Vadai de Amran Inshi Hani Tzinisa de Babel Isnu, is this correct? He said, is this correct that the Tzinisa, that what people say, that there's a statement that people say that these palm trees have existed from the time of Adam Harishon. So Rav Kahana was escorting Rav Shimi Barashi. So and Rav Kahana asked him, Master, asking like his teacher, so to speak, is this true that the Imri Inchi, what people say, is it true what people say that these palm trees of Bavel, Isnehu Meyadam Arishain Biad Hashta, they've been existing from the time of Adam Arishain until now? So Amar Le at Kartan Milsad Rabbi Yosi Reb Chanina. So he said, you're reminding me of something that Rabbi Yosi Reb Chanina said. Rabbi Yosi Reb Chanina, because Rabbi Yosi, the son of Reb Chanina, said, "My dechsiv ba'aretz asher loy avar ba'ish." There's a verse in Jeremiah. The verse says that there's the land that no one ever passed through, v'lo yashav adam sham, and no one lived there. Now, what does that mean? Why would you say both sentences? No one ever passed through this land, and no one ever lived there. If no one passed through there, do you think anyone ever lived there? if no one ever passed through this land, how would anyone ever live in that land? You have to pass through it at least once to be able to live, to be able to settle. You got to at least pass through. So it says, no one ever passed through this land and no one ever lived there. So what does that mean? So what it means is, it's teaching us something. It's teaching us, telling us, Kol Eretz, every land, Shegozer Allah Adam Harishon, that Adam Harishon decreed Liyishuv, that this is going to be a place of settlement. Nisyashva, that land was settled. Any land that Adam did not decree that place is going to be a settlement, Liyishuv, for a settlement, Loinus Yashva was not settled. And so this is how he ended off his they escorted each other, and they ended off their get together with this word of Torah about the land, about the palm trees. Are they all the way from the time of creation or not? And the answer is that they're not exactly from the time of creation, but these palm trees are here because this is a place that Adam decreed that it should end up being a place of settlement. So, meaning that it's not from this that they say it's from Adam. It means that he decreed that there will be some type of settlement here, or it'll be a place where there'll be palm trees and so on, and that's what he decreed. What this means is that Adam Harishon had much bigger job than we think. We think that Adam was just placed on earth, but he had to name all the animals and everything that was all the fish. He named that. Everything was brought to him, and he gave it its name because he saw the mystical energy from the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that caused each of these items to exist. And he was able to see what the name of each thing is based on the energy, the holy energy that was giving each item its existence. And the same thing was that he saw what land was meant to be a settlement. Somehow it was in his hand, so to speak, to decree which land would be settled. I don't know how to explain it so mystically, but what it seems like it has something to do with the fact that Adam, it does say that Adam Harishon was meant, really the Jewish people, we were all part of Adam Harishon's soul. And it was only supposed to be the Jewish people. And then when Adam sinned, that's what gave room for all the nations of the world. Otherwise, it was only going to be the Jewish people. And we were meant to somehow, bring holiness to the world. And somehow certain places needed to have these settlements of the Jewish people settle it and ultimately bring holiness to these places, which would bring the world to, its completion, to whatever God initially wanted. And so Adam had to establish what place was meant to be settled, something along those lines. So that's this is what the Gemara says, and what it's telling us is that is how Adam Harish, that is how these rabbis, that's what these rabbis discussed. They mentioned this statement from Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina about whatever Adam decreed, that's a place that was meant to, that was a settlement, and whatever he didn't decree to be a settlement was not a settlement. Now I'll just conclude with the surprising statement. Rav Mordechai Alviel Rav Shimi Barashi meHagronya. Rav Mordechai escorted Rav Shimi Barashi from Hagronya Va'ad Beikipi until Beikipi, from Milad Beidura until Beidura, and that was his escorting. So it tells us a story of one rabbi escorted the other, but it doesn't tell us that he spoke words of Torah. So why is the Gemara telling us this story? And I'm going to conclude with this so you can think about it. Why would it tell us this? And maybe on Sunday, Mr. Hashem will answer that question. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos.
Okay. Yeah, Rabbi, when you're saying about the settlements, So is this settlements that just the Jewish people settled, or so like including Egypt, or what?
You know, I guess what ended up happening was everyone ended up settling in all these settlements that maybe was. That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I guess I'd have to look up, see if the commentaries talk about this statement, and maybe it's brought in another Gemara as well. Let's see on the side. Nope, seems like this might be the only source. I'm going to have to look up and see if the commentaries talk about the meaning of this, about the settlements, because it definitely is an interesting topic to understand. Why was Adam given that mission to decide where the settle? Like, what do we need that for? Why do we need to, why did Adam need to do that? To decide on the settlements. So that'll be the homework.